Hello, everyone. Billy Amendola here with a new Billy's Bubble on Rock Cellar Magazine's Drum Corner. Today, my guest is an extraordinary musician who is regarded as one of the greats in drumming, as well as a producer and engineer. His vast career includes playing with Jeff Beck, Gary Moore, Big Country, Tears for Fears, The Chemical Brothers, Pete Townshend, and The Who. He was a member of Toto for nearly 2 decades, and in recent years, he's been leading his own Grammy-nominated jazz fusion project, Protocol. Please welcome Simon Phillips. Hello, Simon.
Hello, good morning. Yes.
It's good to see you. How are you, my friend? It's been a while.
Yes, it has. Yeah, I'm fine, just hanging in there, doing doing what needs to be done.
I know, making music, and I know I see you've been producing for a while now and engineering because you have your studio and you've been doing a lot of work out of
Yeah.
your studio.
hmm
And you're in California still, right?
Yes, I live in Ojai now.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, I moved a few years ago, 2017. Uh, I used to have a studio, commercial studio in Sherman Oaks, and but I was just getting a little too old to deal with all the daily running of it, and I felt okay, time to move on and pass it to a younger, more energetic producer, and who the person who bought it is exactly that. And studio is doing really well. Sometimes I use the studio, I visit there, and other people, they text me say, "Hey, guess where I am? I'm at your old studio," which is it's nice. Yeah,
Yeah, and you have your own home studio.
yeah. It's basically my whole house. It's been like that for years. I mean,
Right.
I think I put my first studio together in 1970, gosh, 76 or 7. And then the Porter studio came out. And so it was, a small studio, but very meager. But I've had basically a studio in my house for all these years, except for when I had the commercial studio, which was wonderful to get it out of the house. It was
Right, right. No, and I got to say, as an engineer, because you engineered a lot of the stuff that you either just engineered or produced and engineered, and your records always sound fantastic, sonic wise. I mean, you have really good ears, so
Thank you.
you're a great engineer as well as producer.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, well, it is actually a second career, which I've been doing for over 40 years.
Right.
That's the thing. I started off when we had real real studios.
Yeah, remember?
Couldn't do it at home. You had to go and book a studio and turn up and play with other people. So yeah, I mean, actually, it was thanks to Mike Oldfield. I mean, I was always interested in it since I was a kid. Actually, my dad used to drag me around all the London studios he was working in. So I was familiar with the studio vibe and etiquette from, gosh, 5, 6 years old.
Wow, that's
I used to
great.
sit behind the drummer and very quietly, not making a noise because all the mics were live. Um, so and I always wanted to get the other side of the screen, but you see, in the 70s, now you couldn't do that. So you're like the musician in the room. I mean, you go into the control room, obviously, but you leave that down to the engineer and the tape op, maintenance guy. But I would, without being, hopefully not being obnoxious, I would, when the time was right, start asking questions. And I got to know, oh, I mean, most of the engineers in London, a lot of the maintenance guys. So I'd ask them about tape machines and
Right.
and cabling and what is phantom power? How does that work? And what's balance versus unbalance and all then the different types of mics, the condenser, dynamic ribbon, and and slowly you build up a knowledge of it. But I was still dying to actually get my fingers on a fader,
Right,
a
right.
real. And it was really thanks to Mike Oldfield in 1983. I was playing on his record, which was came out as Crises. It was 10 years after Tubular Bells. And he obviously noticed I was very into everything technically when we were recording the drums. So he called me. This is after we'd finished doing the drum tracks, and he called me and he said, "So what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm doing, a few sessions and things, and I'm actually producing my first artist." He said, "Oh, you produce?" I said, "Well, I'm just starting, really, Mike. I mean, And there was a wonderful artist called Duncan Brown, whose albums I played on back in the 70s. Um, and he said, how would you like to come and produce me?" And I went,
Wow, that's
"Oh,
fantastic.
really?" He said, "Why don't we give it a try? Let's have a trial week and we'll come to the studio." And he had a Neve 8108, which at that time was the newer version, the latest version of a Neve console. It had digital routing, different color. It was like bright blue and white and, very,
Spaceship.
very modern for the time. I mean, there are a few design faults with it, I thought. Was like, "Oh, that's weird. Why did they do that?" But they wanted to make it different. And it had NECAM automation, so it had these big steel, I guess they're steel, faders, which are quite heavy because they were motorized. And so I thought, right, I'd better get an engineer who is a Neve guy. Now, Air Studios at that time was all Neve. So I called Air, I said, "Got any engineers I can steal for a few days?" I spoke to the girl, God, I can't remember her name, who used to book all the things. Said, "Well, yeah, so and so, I can't remember his name. So and so's free." I said, "Right, so I spoke to him and turned up at the studio, and we did one day. And we just kind of went through some of the tunes and just figured out what needed to be done, and you know, didn't really do that much. And then I said, and Mike said, "Okay, I'll see you here tomorrow at 10 o'clock." I went, "Okay."
There you
So
go.
I turn up the next day, and Mike's there. And I said, "Where's the engineer?" He said, "Oh, I fired him." Uh, oh, he said, and then he disappeared for a bit, and I'm sitting in one of the chairs, going, this is interesting. And he walks back in with a blue manual about
Oh my God.
the Neve manual.
Oh my God.
Oh, so I said, "I'll be back in 3 hours." I went, "Oh, okay." And there's a whole index and stuff. I went, "Are you kidding me?" So anyway, that was the start of my engineering.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
And he said the first thing he said when he did come back in about 3 hours. I mean, my head was like it was like the inside of a printed circuit board, you
Oh
know.
my God.
And I'm looking around, looking at where everything is. I mean, I know where everything is, but in terms of the patch bay,
Right.
where things are placed. What's the logic of the patch bay? Because I hadn't got that far yet. I hadn't started building studios yet, so I didn't know, about the wiring and all that kind of stuff. But I kind of figured out, okay, those are blah, 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 tape sheets there. Okay, great. And they said, "Right, let's do acoustic guitar." And I went, "Oh, shit." Anyway, that was the start. And thanks to Mike, and he let me get right on it. He just had enough. He wanted to sit at the back of the studio in a chair,
And
roll,
create.
roll up a joint and
And
listen. And
create.
he'll
Yeah.
say things, and then he would come over and he'd go, "Okay, let me show you what compression does." And without getting too technical, I mean, he was wonderful. He basically taught me how to engineer, and he liked what my natural approach to balancing was.
Did
You
he know you had all that previous
know,
experience?
no, he just knew that I was really interested and knew about stuff. And I'd selected all the mics to make the drum kit up
Right.
with pretty much all the miking as well. And I'd worked with the engineer before that did the drum recording of those tracks. I think he just took a chance.
That's
He
great. That is
looking
fan.
for
See, a
someone.
break. He gave you that encouragement and that
Give me
break.
that break. He wanted to work with a musician as opposed to an engineer because he works
Right.
quickly. I want to punch in here and out here.
Right.
These are like 16th note punches.
Right.
30 yips on the tape machine, which is a little easier. It was an Ampex. But I was able to get the timing right without clipping I'll
Right.
cut
Right.
out the next bit.
And at this point now, you were already an established drummer playing
Oh yeah,
on with everybody. Yeah.
yeah,
See,
yeah.
so you would probably, if you didn't become one of the world's greatest drummers, you would have probably got even more into engineering and producing.
I definitely, yeah. I mean, in those days, you really had to be connected to a studio. I would have loved to have worked on the staff of a big studio. It would have been great, you know. So I had to learn, bit by bit, and then when I started producing, I would book a studio, and then I remember my first time on an SSL, I was like, oh shit, because I was, started with Neve and that concept, and then now we had a machine
Right.
that had a channel strip that had for the first time dynamics in it, and all sorts of other stuff you could do. The automation was amazing. So I learned how to mix on an SSL
That's
um,
great.
with help from assistant engineers and
Yeah,
okay, how do I want to do this? How do I do that? He said, well, you need to blah 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 blah. Patch that in there. I went, oh, great, fantastic. And that control, oh wow, fantastic. So it's yeah,
that's great.
yeah.
That's great.
Spent
All right,
many.
so before we talk about the latest Darwin album, Distorted Mirror, you've been with guitarist Darwin now since I think 2015, right? And it started as just like a project with no plan, and then organically it evolved. Now 10 years later, here
Yeah.
we are, new album coming out.
Yeah.
Tell us about how it evolved.
Um, well, so we're in the we're into the 2000s now. So obviously, most bookings come through the internet. Um, Few people used the phone back then to book us. Some people did, but most of the time it was an email because that's what everybody was doing.
Hmm.
And his was one of the emails from an artist who would like to record. He was a big fan of the Derek Sherinian album Inertia
That you
and the ones after that, which
produced, right?
yeah. So, and I think he went, wow, I think I'd like to work with him. So I'm going to send him an email. And he did, and it was a very involved email with lots of ideas. I was going, wow, okay. Um, and that's literally how it started. He sent me some tunes. I said, these are interesting. I think they need arranging and sorting out a little bit, but yeah, I think we can work with this. So we literally planned a couple of days. He was living in North California back then, and came down to the studio. And I had Ernest Tibbs, my bass player, turn up, and we started working together. And that was the beginning of the first album, Origin of Species, which became a double album. It went on and on and on. It was amazing. And and yeah, and
It
then he
just evolved from there. And then you made a few albums and leading up, of course, now to this new album.
yeah. Just
And so now, and then how did, I know everybody, there was different musicians throughout the different albums. And then Derek Sherinian, actually, I mean, the go-to guy for Dream Theater and his own projects and so many people that he worked with, uh, Sons of Apollo, Black Country Communion.
yeah,
So
yeah.
he had a pretty good career, and you produced his album, which was everybody loved. So how did he come? So obviously you knew him and worked with him. So did Darwin want him on the record, or did you suggest? And how did he come into the project?
I think I suggested. He was obviously a big fan of those records, so I said, "Well, let me ask. Why don't we get Derek to play on some of the tunes?" So, and that was most of the musicians were through my contacts. Um, but Diamond would also have, "Hey, I'm a real fan of Matt Bissonette. Can we get him in to sing?" I said, "Sure." Yeah. Hey, Matt, how you doing? And
Right.
everything came. And so. But of course, like any project, it takes a while to find your flow and the formula, as it were. Um, and I guess a few years ago, we found that the triumvirate was Darwin, Matt, and myself in terms of the compositions. So we write the material.
And Matt was playing bass at this point.
Actually, he was singing.
he was singing? Because I know he on the new record he's singing, and
And
you got a new bass player, which we'll speak about.
yes, we will. Yes. And it just evolved. It's just the way it evolved, by accident, by people's availability. Um, and now it seems to have found a really nice groove. And basically, we've recorded three albums. Uh,
Hmm.
Five Steps on the Sun was released a couple of years ago. Now Distorted Mirror is going to be released September 26th. I'm already working on the next album.
Nice.
So yeah, it's very he's very prolific. He just keeps writing material and sending it to me. He said, "How about this one?" And I listen to it and I go, "Okay, let's have a look at this."
You
And
put your producer hat on.
yeah, exactly. Producer and a
Right.
ranger hat,
Right.
and then that turns into composition because that might be just the first part of a song, and then I'll go, what would work really nice here? And then I start fiddling about with the different keys, just where we
Hmm.
can go from here. And then all of a sudden, I've got this whole section, and I go, I wonder what he'll think of this. And I do a demo. It's all MIDI. It's nothing very special, but it gives you the idea of the
Right.
music.
Right. Right.
And it goes, wow, that's never would have thought of going there. That's fantastic. Right, let's do that. And how about, and that's how we work. It's
And it
great.
works. That's the great thing because it has to be that connection.
Yes, yeah, it works great.
And
And
I think Matt now and Matt, he's got a great voice. So
yeah,
it brings a melodic, it makes it more melodic because I know you don't want it to be just musicians' music.
so,
When I first became aware of the band, I was like, well, this is great because I appreciate it as a musician because all the musicians were fantastic.
yeah,
Odd time signatures and all of that. But I like songs. I like
yeah,
listening to the melody and something
yeah.
sticking in my head. And Matt's got the perfect voice for that.
Yeah, he's great. And Matt does a lot of the lyrics, and a lot of the vocal melodies. Um, and it does. I mean, and Darwin loves the big background vocals
Right.
stuff. So I call it kind of a mix between Dream Theater crossed with Crosby, Stills and Nash.
I read something about Metallica and the Beatles if they
Yeah,
had a
somebody
baby.
else mentioned that.
I
Yeah,
wanted the reviews when I was doing research.
yeah, yeah.
And Matt, I know Matt and Greg, his brother Greg, they very into the Beatles. So
Oh, yeah, totally, totally.
yeah.
Yeah,
And so now he's not playing bass. Tell us about the bass player. She's from India, I believe, right?
absolutely. Mohini Day.
Mohimi Day.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I had played on a couple of sessions, again by proxy, internet audio files. Um, and I thought, and I've been hearing a lot about her, and I watched a few of the YouTube things. I thought, wow, well, she's a great technician, and she's got this, real Indian approach to the way she plays. But I'd only heard her play that kind of music,
Right.
very complex, fusiony type music, Indian influenced. And then um, Protocol were on a cruise. We went on the cruise to the Edge, and turns out that Marco Miniman had put a band together with Randy Stein, McStein, um, 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 and Mohini was playing. I can't recall the names right now, but Mohini was the bass player. So I went into a sound check and went and said hello to everybody and met Mohini. And when they went on stage, Ernest and I went out front to have a listen because I wasn't sure what I was going to hear because listening to the other music, I thought, well, this is going to be much more song based. And it was. And I'm going, wow. And I looked up at Ernest and I said, what do you think? He said, oh, she's amazing. And the sound was great and it was totally right for the music. Um, and that's when I spoke to Darwin about it. And he said, oh, no, I've been watching her on YouTube. And said, can we get hold of her? I said, well, let's give it a go. And
There
so
you go.
booked her for the sessions, and we recorded in Zurich. Had a great studio there. Um, and that was it. And that's where that I guess that's where this kind of band really started to gel with Darwin, Mahini, and myself. And we would lay all the basic tracks all live, which is really important. It's part of one of my production things. Is I know it's sometimes hard budget wise to get everybody in the same
Right.
place. You cannot beat it, even if it's just the three of you doing the basic tracks.
Right.
There's just something about it,
Yep.
the
Yep.
tempo. Often I get sessions and it's in Pro Tools and they've already recorded it, mostly at 120 BPM. I sometimes wonder, doesn't anybody know how to change the tempo in Pro Tools? Um, and often I'm playing a song and I'm going, this is the wrong tempo. I can't, it doesn't fit. It's like either here or here.
Right.
And often, depending whether it's a final, I'm the last person to go on, or whether it's earlier in the day in terms of all the overdubs, I'll go in and I'll time stretch everything and change the tempo. As sometimes I might even change the arrangement because there's like an awkward change that doesn't feel right. I can't help myself. And
No.
luckily, people are cool with it,
I was going to say, I'm sure it helps.
Well, tempo is so important. And I think this is one of the problems with music today is that because of the way it's recorded, it can
Sterile.
never be changed. But I mean, altering by even one beat per minute can make a
Right.
difference.
Right.
And that's what we do. We lay a track down, and we're making mistakes all over the place because we're still kind of learning it. And the first thing I do, right, let's take a listen. And I know, "Oh, can't we just play it again?" I said, no, let's just listen. I wanna make sure sounds are right, the tempo's right, everything. And I
Right.
go, listen, I go, mm-hmm. All right, let's try this 2 beats per minute quicker. And I'll just go and change it and using X form on all the MIDI stuff, which I've already put down, so we know what we're playing to.
Right.
And that might happen a couple of times. I mean, that's what we used to do in the 70s.
Exactly. That's why I love Nashville because I never was into country music till maybe about ten years ago because everybody plays together and to me country is 70s rock now.
It is. It absolutely is. Yeah.
And it has that feel because
Yeah.
everybody's still playing together. Sometimes the vocals are even being done.
Yeah.
I
It's
love
it's
it.
and also, I mean, when I'm producing a band, I want the vocalist to be there. I've got him in a booth with a microphone because
Right.
I want to make sure sometimes the keys are not right. There was one band I produced a couple of years ago, and the guy's like stretching. I said, guys, notes are too high. Let's bring it down a half step. Make all the difference. And the singer was like, "Phew, thank you. That's great."
Right.
Didn't know what
Right.
to say because they're not so experienced.
Yep. Yep.
We would do that all the time in the 70s making records. Hey guys, let's transpose this, let's go down a whole step or something.
Right.
And yeah, a little bit of sorting out and it's done.
And when
So
you're together, happy mistakes.
well, I said that's the other thing. And that's when we do protocol records and we got five of us playing. And something happens and I go, hey guy, that was really cool. What happened? We work that into the arrangement and because demos are demos.
Right.
And I love making demos, and they're sometimes very detailed. I even play real drums on them because that's another thing.
Right.
Once I've got the basic part of the song, I'll just open some channels up and route all the mics to the right places, and go out, build a headphone mix up, and play to it, and see is it playable? That's the first
Right.
thing.
Right.
Like in terms of meter, if I'm doing
Yes.
1916, I want to figure out how am I going to play this. Is the tempo right? And I sort out a lot of stuff like that. But then once I've done that, I go, okay, great. And then I don't play real drums for a while. I just work with a just a very simple drum program until the song is all together.
And has some of that been done without a click, or it's always done with a click?
I would say, I mean, the last Protocol 5 record was, did we do one without a click? No, we didn't. We didn't. But on Protocol 4, there was one tune and it wasn't sitting right for me. So I said to my assistant, I said, okay, give us the click as the count in and then mute it straight away and we'll just play. And felt so much better. We actually did 2 takes and we cut from one take to another. This is without a click, which is what we
Nice.
used to do all the time, by the way.
Right.
You
Right. Back in the day, that's how Ringo.
know? Yeah. And it was Dennis Ham's solo. He said, man, I really prefer my solo because there were live solos on
Right.
that first take. And I said, fine, I have no problem with that. And it's I noticed there's a slight little drift, obviously, but it doesn't affect the way the enjoyment of listening to the music, It never did,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
And
So,
and let's face it, as far as drums go, you have unbelievable time anyway.
yeah, but it's not faultless. I mean, we
Yeah,
all
no, everybody, because you get a little excited. But that's what, like what you just said, that's what adds to the excitement of the song. If it moves slightly, the average person don't feel that little movement
yeah,
unless it's
exactly.
drastic. I mean, if it's drastic, but you're not. If you're playing in the studio and you're making records, you're not going to be doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the thing about using a click in these days in the studio is if you're doing multiple takes, it's great. You can just do playlists and it's all pretty. I mean, there's movement in the playing, and
Right,
that's what I do with a click anyway. To me, the click is not the ultimate thing. I don't have it that loud. So if I'm playing, I actually don't hear the click.
right,
And I use a little cowbell sound, so it doesn't interfere sonically with anything else. And I'll just play around with it. I might push a little bit on some sections. I might sit back on some sections.
hmm
And I was talking to the band Toto years ago, actually, not long after I joined, about Jeff, and they said, "Oh, Jeff hated playing with a click," and he would do the same thing. He said he'd just play around it, and but it would feel great, and that's
right,
that's
right,
I think that's one of the skills that a drummer has had to learn from, well, let's say the 80s, which is when we were using click a lot more often, um, is to learn to play around it and make it feel good.
right.
It's important. And
100%.
yeah, there are some producers who solo the drum track and solo the click and listen like this.
I know.
Look, you're behind. I said, okay, so you're going to mix this like this, and that's how the public are going to hear it with the click. Right? No, they're
Or
not.
the drums by themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah,
there's ways of doing it, and you just, but it's something you do have to,
you
you
have to develop. You have to
learn.
practice. You have to
Develop. Yeah,
practice that, right? That's a great tip.
yeah.
Okay, now Greg Howe, I mean, superstar guitarist.
Mhm.
How did he get into the fold?
Well, Greg was in Protocol 4, so
I knew you guys had worked together before.
yes, yeah. The first time I worked with Greg or played with Greg was actually with Eddie Jobson, and Eddie put together a short tour, East Coast tour around, oh gosh, I can't even remember, early 2000s, I think, or mid. No, it would have been no, late 2000, like 2008, 9 or 10, something like that. And Greg was the guitarist. And
Butch is gonna love this because Butch worked with Eddie.
oh, really? Really? Yeah. So that was the first time I played with Greg. I was like, wow. And after Protocol 3, everybody kind of wanted to go their own way. I think they'd had enough of playing in 17/8. And Greg was the first person I called. I said, and we chatted, and he said, "Yeah, this sounds interesting." And so I sent him some the demos of Protocol 4, and he loved them. He said, "Wow, I can't believe how guitar-y it is and how it sits on the guitar so well." He loved it. So, that was great.
That worked.
And again, Darwin's very, very pays a lot of attention to all the different players. And he'll introduce me to some players. He go, check this guy out. And I go,
Right.
oh yeah, he's really good. So anyway, he loves Greg, so I got Greg
Yeah,
involved.
because two guitar players, you know how that could be sometimes.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
But it worked because they admired each other. And
yeah.
I,
Here's,
I
I
read I
think,
read an interview with Darwin where he said that he loves Greg's playing so much that he even let him do some of the leads, like that he was gonna do.
Oh yeah, no, he ended up going. We used to do. So Darwin would play some solos on the earlier records, but now he's just like, I can't match Greg. I'd rather hear Greg playing. So,
Right, right.
yeah, which is great, and I think that's really, as because this is all quite new for Darwin. I think he's kind of figuring out the where he's strong, and when he should let other people play.
Right, right.
So it works great.
And as a producer too, that's he co-produces with you?
Darwin?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So he knows. So and that's where a lot of the younger generation. It's all for the. If it's a group, it's got to be what's best for the group. If it's a project, it's got to be what's best for the project. That's the way it has to be.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Now we must mention, of course, the other guitarist that does a lot of the acoustic works, all the weird instruments and stuff is Jesse Siebenberg.
Hmm.
You might know him. He is Bob Siebenberg's son, who's the drummer of Supertramp.
Wow,
Yeah. So
wow.
he lives here in Ojai, and he is amazing. He's kind of my go-to player for a lot of productions, actually, because he's a multi-instrumentalist. He's actually a very good drummer. He started off as a drummer. It's so funny.
That's
And
great. Everyone should start as a drummer.
yeah, I think so. Um, and he's great. He's got a great voice too. He sang in Supertramp. Um,
And he grew up in the business.
Grew up, and he's one keyboards, guitar, and he has a wonderful collection of all strange sounding guitars, dobro, Weisenhorn, lap
Nice.
steel. I mean, he is very he can go kind of anywhere, very wide in terms of his experience and styles and stuff. So he is kind of, I call him, he's like the glue sometimes that holds everything together in the mix. If I need some acoustics, and I need
Right,
some
right,
12 strings. I just need some just some nice crunchy but not too bright heavy guitars here, just to bolster up the what we've already got. That kind of
right,
stuff.
right, right. Which you need. That's like a lot of percussionists come in for things like that, just to
Absolutely.
add that little sprinkle.
Yeah. Oh, we had Lenny play on
I was
Lenny.
gonna say Lenny Castro.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my favorite percussionist,
Oh,
actually.
he's Lenny's one of the greats.
Yeah. Yeah.
So while we're talking about Lenny and Toto, because I didn't want this to be, everybody knows your career with Toto, but what was your favorite song? Did you like, if you had to pick one song, because I know it's hard, but if you picked one song, what was your favorite song to play live with Toto?
Oh boy, gosh. I mean, there were so many. I
I
mean,
know, I know.
yeah. Um, well, there was for various reasons. I co-wrote an instrumental, which is not even an instrumental, but it was kind of started off as an instrumental. It was a piece called Better World, and it had three parts. And we were writing music for Minefields, um, and I just came up one day with this more orchestral piece because I just felt from the instrumental point of view we could do something a little bit more interesting than what we'd done before. Jake to the Bone was kind of their first instrumental that they did on Kingdom of Desire. And for Tamboo, I started off this song called Dave's Gone Skiing, which is something in nine. And so Luke and I kind of put that together. Um, and of course on Luke's album or the Lobotomies album, I came up with the start to Party in Simon's Pants, which Luke of course came up with the
Right,
title.
right, right. I remember that.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it was kind of the first time, I came up with a 17/8 riff, and then we wrote it in an hour basically. It was amazing, because he's so.
I spoke to him about Party in Simon's Pants. That was great.
Um, yeah, it was wonderful. So, but I thought we could do something a little bit more orchestral, something really challenging for Dave to play, which is that kind of Emerson type ostinato with his left hand. Um, and so that was always fun to play because I was more invested in that
Right,
composition.
right,
The other songs, over the years, I'd go through phases of each one. I mean, obviously, when you're talking about the hits, Rosanna and Africa, Hold the Line, and
right,
Ballads, of course, we have to play them every night. So they become the ones that you really just don't want to play anymore.
right, right.
That's natural. It's
Yeah.
natural.
And
But it was
Steve,
always
I just saw Steve with Ringo because he's been
right.
with Ringo all these years. He still plays those three songs.
Yeah.
He has to.
Uh, you have to, and sometimes it's the curse, isn't it? Be careful.
Yeah. I know.
Right
Be
ahead,
careful what you
you're
wish
stuck
for.
with it. Yeah. I mean, Jeff, he hated playing Hi Ho Silver Lining. He would never play it in the street. He didn't want anybody to hear that. But Mickey Most, and back in the day, he had a hit with it. And when we were in England, we'd have to play Hi Ho Silver Lining, which was just hilarious.
Right.
I mean, we just played a set with Space Boogie and You Never Know and The Pump and all these songs, and then to end with do 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 do,
I know. I
He
know.
hated it, but he had a big hit.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
this is the curse. It's and some bands are only lucky enough to have one hit. And Toto, how many hits do they have? Incredible. And then you look at a band like Genesis and you go hit after hit after hit. It's amazing. So yeah, the more you have, then but it's probably easier on your soul when you're having to play long tours.
Well, before we go, I want to talk about the Unplugged from 2021, where I read something about it. You isolated tracks and created new arrangements of existing tracks.
Right.
Take us,
Yeah.
tell us about that process.
Again, that was an idea of Darwin's. We were right in the middle of COVID, and so everybody's kind of not working. I worked all the way through it actually, because of the circumstance that I had found in Ohio. I was very lucky. There was a studio there owned by one person, and we would only have the two of us, and he'd be in
Right,
one.
right, right.
Um, and we did a lot of work there, and he had this idea. He just wanted to keep going. So um, a lot of the tunes of Origin of Species had orchestra on them, or they had strings on them, like a string quartet. Um, and he said, "Can we somehow make this like a more of an orchestral album?" I said, "Yeah, let's as long as we pick the right songs." So all the songs that had a string part on it, I just kind of brought them up.
Was that real strings?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, I had a string quartet in my studio, and he actually did some sessions at EMI,
Nice.
Abbey Road,
Yep.
um, in Studio One with an orchestra.
Beautiful.
Yeah, which is absolutely lovely. I mean, yeah.
No,
So
you can't beat that.
yeah, so there was a bit of rearranging to do, and Matt was actually great. He came in and did some, redid bass lines and came up with a new idea for certain songs. So, I don't remember the details.
But you
But
were reconstructing,
yeah,
which now everybody is doing.
yeah, it's a fun thing to do. It's very much a production thing because
Right.
there's not so much playing.
Right.
But you isolate the vocals and then you put in the parts. Go, okay, let's redo that bass part. Let's have a different thing. And we'll take the drums off and then maybe have some percussion or. So it's kind of fun. It's
Right.
really fun to do that.
And it's a different way of creating
Oh, totally,
and
totally.
repurposing what you have. I mean, to have strings, from Abbey Road and have a real string quartet, that's
Well, and also sonically, you get to hear them the way they should be heard.
right.
But
Right.
those songs that we did with them, they were very dense mixes, very difficult mixes to do actually on Origin of Species because there was just so much.
And it takes up so much space.
if I had a console, I mean, this would have been if I had it would have had to have been a very large console because there were so many tracks. Of course, it's all virtual, but still, you've got a screen and your option click, whizzing by, and you may have five different screens on a wide screen. There's so much in there. So, so there's a lot of kind of Pro Tools housekeeping that you have to do in order to make sure you've got enough voices to play the parts. Um, you can do some sub mixing, or which I do sometimes. I mean, that's what we used to do all the time with 24 track. Um, but obviously, if you want, the cello to be louder, and you've
Right,
already done sub mix, you see what I mean?
right.
So it really depends. And this is about the organization and mapping out. And it's a very engineering kind of thing. You got to think, right, we got 16 channels of strings. Right. Hmm.
Hmm, hmm.
And you know what I mean? And then you find out that there's a little mistake in one of the sections, but that can be copied from another section. So you have to, it takes a long time. But it's very creative and it's something I love to do. Yeah.
Right, right. That's great. You did a great job.
Well,
Great
thank
job.
you. Thank you.
So on the new record, I know I got a chance to hear the new record. By the time it'll be around the time that this goes up that the record will be out, so people should check it out. Distorted Mirror, Man versus Machine, Loophole, Distorted Mirror. Those are the ones that stand out to me, like from just flipping through, listening.
Right.
So good luck with everything, and keep doing what you're doing. It's
Thank
good
you.
to see you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Lovely. Yeah. Yeah. It's a really fun project and keeps me busy.
Yeah, nah, that's
Yeah.
good. And I look forward to more of your productions and of course your drumming, that goes without saying. I mean, you are one of the greatest drummers, and whether you like it or not.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know what it's like when you hear it yourself. There's you always hear what's wrong with it.
Yeah, of course, of course.
But on the
But you
other
see, now you have another whole thing. I'm not going to say to fall back on, but you had something else that you were also pursuing, which now
hand,
is working. So, and
yeah,
that in the music business, we know we have
yeah,
to work.
yeah. No, absolutely, especially these days. I think the interesting thing is that for me, I know it might sound weird, but it wasn't enough just to play
Right,
drums.
right,
I'm too interested in making music than to do that, and too interested of my passion was as a kid. I loved the sound of records very early on. Certain records I play and I go, doesn't sound great. And then I'd hear. I remember hearing it was a Shirley Bassey album.
Hmm,
I was in my teens, and it was probably recorded at CTS or Air or one of those or EMI with orchestra. And the arrangements were beautiful, but the sound of that record was fantastic. I mean, and Shirley Bassey is an amazing singer, but I wouldn't put that on my radar as my favorite music. I'd be
right, right,
prefer to listen to Chicago Transit Authority or Mahavishnu or
right,
Gentle John or whatever it happened to be, or Yes.
right.
But what I loved was the sound of the record. Quincy Jones,
Yeah,
Paul Ramon used to engineer those older records, and the sound is just it's what is it? To me it's magic. It
yeah.
really
I was just going to say that. Yep.
and that's what I always try to achieve when I'm recording a band or an artist or because when I work with these guys, I'm still like in awe and still like how do you do that?
Right, right. You're still learning, which is great because that's the
Yeah,
whole thing in life, to
yeah.
continue to learn.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I just recently, well, actually last year, worked with Nico Bolas, who's a capital engineer,
Yep.
and we knew each other a little bit, but had never worked together. And then suddenly we had this thing, and anyway, I had a small kit. It was in Sunset Sound, and he said, well, do you want to use your mics? I said, well, I recommend them. I think they work very, very well. I said, fine, let's do it. So mic'd it up, and he let me actually position the mics because he was kind of curious. And
Hmm.
then he actually positioned the bass drum mic, which I thought was really interesting. I was like, okay, you know. And then did a quick sound check, and they said, well, come and have a listen. And I'm listening, I'm going, how do you do that? And it's beautiful.
Right.
And it's the same, when you work with Bob Clearmountain or Elliot Shiner.
Did you know Al Schmidt?
Oh yeah, I only worked with him once, and he said when he saw my drum kit, it was like said, I hear you have all your own mics. I said, yeah, except for overheads. You can use something. He said, hmm. He said, well, I think you'd better mic it up. He didn't want to know. He saw the
He
drum
was
said,
probably saying,
"No,
"Do
you
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 really
go
need
ahead."
all those drums?"
And I said, "Are you sure, Al? I mean, come on." He said, "No, I'm totally fine."
He was
And
he was
so,
he was a gentleman. He was great.
oh, he was lovely. And I mic'd it up, and I said, let's put some, what do you want on the overhead? So I said, well, a pair of 67s would be great. I said, beautiful, they're my favorites. And I said, this is where I normally put them. Obviously, feel free, whatever. He said, no, let's do it where you want it. And that's it. I don't think we moved a thing.
That's
And
great.
I went in to have a listen to the playback, and he's just sitting there with his arms folded and legs crossed, and all the faders. I mean, he's done nothing.
Right.
He's done the most amazing thing. It's so beautiful. He knows all. He's checked all his phase and everything. Just sounded amazing. I'm like, wow,
And
that's
he knew that room better than anyone.
right. Well, this was a thing in Germany.
Oh,
Stage. Yeah, it was a live thing. So it didn't matter. He's still gotten the most amazing
yeah.
sound.
Great he is.
What I was so glad, and great to hang with him too. And we had a chat, a lot of
Oh, the
about the
stories.
old days, and
Yeah.
you know, it was lovely, really lovely.
Beautiful. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank
I,
you.
I know you keep busy all the time, so thank you for this. Billy Amendola, Simon Phillips, we'll see you next time. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye bye. Thank you.